Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and tonight as part of our summer mini skein mini series we are going to do some low immersion dyeing, layering colors in our pan using our 10 gram and 100 gram mini skeins. I bought all these mini skeins from Wool to Dye For. They are all 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. I have divided them into bunches of 5 mini skeins and secured them with a nylon reusable zip tie. And this is so while we're doing the dyeing, I can easily flip them, plus it's an extra tie to prevent tangling. I am pre-soaking all of these mini skeins in some plain tap water for at least 20 or 30 minutes. I have pulled a lot of different 1% stock solutions of Dhrama acid dyes for this video today. But I'm going to start by roughly, this is all roughly, sort of laying out these minis in approximate order. So that way, you know, we've got one that's 1 through 10, and then here's another set of 5. Now, when these arrived, I was surprised with how long they were, because ideally I would like to lay them out this way like I did in the rainbow video. And so then, you know, I can add more of one color to the top, different color to the bottom, and make some kind of fade all in one pan. I think that we can do something a little similar, just keeping, you know, more of one color along one side or even in a portion of one side, you know, whether it's the top, the middle, or bottom, and then layering colors on in this sort of random pattern that I really enjoy. Right now in the steam pan I have 150 grams of yarn, and I think I'm going to add about 2 cups of water. No, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and add this whole 4 cups of water. And so what I just put in was 4 cups of water plus 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, which is now giving us some acid in our yarn, so that way once we start heating things up, the colors will bind. And actually, I do think I want to add a little bit more water. Alright, so now we have the equivalent of 6 cups of water plus 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. And I am on top 2 burners on my gas stove, and we'll shimmy this for heat, but these zip ties are not only handy as an extra tie to prevent tangles, they are also super useful because if we decide that we need to flip the yarn, then we can. However, with only 150 grams of yarn in here, I'm expecting we could get reasonable penetration to the other side, depending on how quickly our colors strike. I will be doing this technique multiple times today. I'm not going to sure if I'm going to show each one, but since I'm not pre-measuring out the colors, therefore there will be some differences between them. And so you could create a fade using similar colors but different dye lots as well, which I think will be fun to play with. Alright, first I have the stock of some Dhrama Brilliant Yellow, and I am just doing some polka dots, sort of going with how it is dripping out. I've pulled a lot of colors out today, but we'll see if any of these bottles need some help. But I've got some Delphinium blue, which I'm sort of just going, you know, sort of, maybe I'll have some hints of it down here, but mostly on that middle section. And I can keep adding and layering these colors more and more. Some of these dye stocks are old, some of them are ones that I made today. And, you know, I could do more big squirts, but these are 1% stock solutions. They are fairly concentrated, so these colors might spread some. I do want to at some point give things a little bit of time to absorb Now I've got some purple pop, and I want to be very sparing with this. Because I know that this has a lot of color. Oop. There we go. Oop. This is sort of my base, and I'm planning on layering a lot of another color on top. Got some espresso bean. Which, yeah, maybe it can go a little bit all over. But you know, as these go and as colors strike, I'm just playing, and I'm playing with these shades and seeing where they end up. And so if this were just a single skein of yarn, we could end up with something really unbalanced. This is actually striking pretty quickly. Probably not the purple pop, but I didn't expect that. Yeah, if this were a single skein of yarn, we could end up with something fairly imbalanced, or end up with something that's sort of semi-repeating. And we're getting reasonable color penetration to the other side. I'm not going to worry about that a ton at the moment. But yeah, I think that it's just something kind of fun and cool to play around with. And I want to sort of pump up the yellow on that one. Okay, and blue. And oh, I've got some Twilight gray. This is a lot of colors I'm putting in, but I'm enjoying having some different hues. Okay, some Twilight gray, sort of in that middle. So already, this is something that's very pretty. I think we've got a lot of steam in that one end, but you can see how we could take this out, and we are creating something that has some depth. What's funny is that some of these paler colors, like these blues, are spreading out less. And we're actually getting some speckles because some of them are striking fast. But then some of these other colors just, you know, strike less fast overall. Now, I sort of want to go ham and go in really heavy with this cherry bomb all over. I haven't waited because a lot of these colors have absorbed, but I'm going in with this red just sort of all over everything. Just a bit, and now I'm taking my spoon, and you know, I want there to be layers and texture and sort of watercolor in here, but I also want there to be like some depth and saturation. And so that is why sort of I'm going through now and poking at it. And I think, alright, so I like the way this is looking, and I think that what we've got is something that's really, really subtle overall. Let me get some more cherry bomb. I think that some of these undertones might end up being a little more subtle than I was initially thinking about, but that is okay. I am experimenting and playing with these colors. So maybe what I might do in the next round is, you know, leave some more of that white and maybe start with some of the red all over, and then layer these colors on top so that way they show through a little bit more. But I am really excited overall how this is going. But I think that these differences are very, very subtle right now. And I'm curious, yeah, there's definitely some other colors on the other side. Whether or not I'm going to add color or not, that I don't know. This could lead to some less balance on these minis, but it also could be really cool. Since each mini skein in here is 10 grams, we're getting more penetration of color than we might have in some other kinds of circumstances. Or at least something that'll be more balanced, because we might have one skein that has a lot more white, but overall I think that because of the way that they can be mixed together, there is more balance present. And I'm going to go ahead and add a lot more yellow. I think I went a little subtle, little bits of yellow there, but a lot more yellow on sort of this first section. This is our Peacock blue. Every once in a while, give a little bit, give us some more of that in there. Maybe like some hints of it. I guess I'd had some Delphinium blue as well, but I'm just, it's overall a lot paler of a color, but I'm sort of just layering it for some additional depth. And the purple pop with the yellow, oh dear, don't want a lot. There we go. A little bit of purple pop. More on that first one. Maybe some espresso bean in that middle. I think it would be easier for me to layer things. Yeah, it might be easier to layer things in the other direction, but I think it would also be a lot easier for me to play around with this if I were not deciding to add that red heavily across everything. So I really like where this is going, and I'm now going to start my like red layered. But I think that what I forgot when I was starting this was that this kind of technique gives wonderful sort of watercolored effects. It gives beautiful layered effects. But overall, it does, you know, those effects from the layering gives us different undertones. And therefore, like, those are undertones, but overall there's a lot of consistency that you see in the color on top. And so I think that it might be, once I have these wound into mini skeins, maybe we'll see something that feels a little bit more dramatic. But right now what we've got is pretty subtle. There we go. Layering on some more, because I really enjoy these layered types of projects. Okay, I think that there's no disputing that we have more blue on this side and more of like an orange and sort of pink on the other. There are different undertones, but ultimately this is something that does have a very, you have to look at it a little closely. So I think that this kind of fade would be really, really subtle. But I'm excited to give this another go and look at the overall colors and the variegated nature of these yarns versus having it be the undertones, if that makes sense. I am, the color has almost cleared. I'm gonna raise the heat a little bit, give this 10 minutes, and then we're gonna swap to another pan to play around some more. I love what is going on here so much. In all of these, you think, ooh, this is a red color, but the undertones, ooh. I wonder if when I go and like when things dry, if it's gonna feel like 3 different colorways, or if it's gonna feel like that there are some more. But I mean, as you can see, the water has cleared. So I'm gonna turn off the heat, set this aside, and let's get going with round 2. Okay, we are here with round 2. Also 150 grams worth of 10-gram mini skeins. And this time, I'm going to start with our cherry bomb. I'm going to start and sort of add a lot of this color. We'll still be doing some layers, but I guess it's technically in a little more regular fashion that I've done this cherry bomb. I want this yarn to feel a lot of red, but yeah, I think that this should help, and it's kind of fun to watch it spread. I am sort of going and tapping it, partly because I want to see how much has dissolved. I'd like this color to penetrate to the other side some, but yeah, I think that you know, this is giving us a bunch of red just on the yarn to start with. Once again, I did start with 6 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, and I'll come back in a couple minutes and then we'll start layering on some other colors. A few minutes later, there's still maybe a tiny bit of color left, but I mean, in its own right, this is a beautiful, beautiful colorway. But let's go and do something a little fun. Okay, I'm gonna start, oh dear. Whoa dear. Whoa dear. I was hoping to get more drops, but it came out a little faster than I intended. Let's, you know, give this a little bit of a push. Didn't get that much more on one than we did on the other, which was sort of my goal, but maybe I'll add a bit more down there. Okay. Oh dear. I was like, oh no, we're coming faster. Oh, we're coming faster. All right, but so let's do, let's do this like triangle. So we've got a lot of blue, a little less blue, then a little less blue up there. Just as one color, I guess, cross. Then with the yellow, which I also expect might come a little fast, we're going to do something a little similar. We'll have less, then more down there. So like clearly now we've got a gradient where we've got less yellow, more yellow. These colors are all going across the same ones. So I don't want to let like this be the end all be all. I am going to add a little bit more yellow sort of on this one with maybe just like a few hints in the middle, and maybe it's a tiny bit up there, but overall there is a lot more yellow in that first one. And I think I might do the same with our Peacock blue. Funny, I wasn't intending for this to be like a primaries kind of thing, but you know, I think that that is sort of where we've headed a little bit. A little drop there. And I'm going to try to add this just on like this one. I'm adding a little bit of Twilight gray and like a little bit less like towards that middle. And I think I'm going to do a little bit, maybe I'll do some of this Delphinium blue. It's got some warmth down here, just a little bit, just to sort of break up some of that color a little bit. Coming in this middle, just with a little bit of espresso bean. Cool, that sort of breaks up some of these colors a little bit, but just a little bit. You know, I think that this time it's a little easier to see the difference between one and the other. Maybe I didn't even need to go for like some of these triangle shapes. I could have done this just with sort of squirting randomly and overlapping. Again, I think that this kind of thing would be easier if I was trying to do a gradient lengthwise, just because there's more space to work with. But I do think that we are ending up with something that is really nice. I'm curious there's a lot of blue there. Alright, a lot of color has absorbed except for some of this blue, which I know that this is a color, even though I made the stock solution today, it does not absorb super well. But let's bring some of that down there. Okay, I'm gonna let this sit for a bit and then we'll come back, move it around, and flip these over. Okay, let's flip these and see what the other side looks like. Oh, that's pretty. Ooh, these other side. Ooh, that's real pretty. Let's see what this one. Whoa, we've got some real saturated sections over there. You know, I'm a little happy with this so far. I think, goodness, I think I might just want a tiny bit more yellow down here. Tiny bit more yellow. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy. I forget, of course now I forget like what color I was going in, but let's just add a little bit of espresso bean. I think I was doing a little bit of Delphinium blue down here. Which, I mean, you can see the Delphinium, it's also a 1% stock solution, but it just barely shows up. And I think, because we've got some white, we'll just do a tiny bit of Twilight. But yeah, I am really, really liking this and enjoying these layers. Clearly, there's still some more color to absorb, so I am going to let this sit for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and start playing with another one. This looks so beautiful, and I am so unbelievably excited by all of these colors. And in general, this sort of way of randomly layering colors is one of my favorite techniques in the entire world. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat. I will go ahead and show, looks like we've got a tiny bit of pink left in there. There's definitely some white. I think we could, you know, move the ties a bit and see, but I think that, again, because these are 10-gram minis versus full skeins, it's not gonna feel as out of place if there are some paler sections left. So anyway, I'm gonna set this aside to cool, and let's dye some more yarn. This time I have 200 grams total of yarn in the pan, with 2 zip ties laid out very similarly to the others, but we're using 20-gram mini skeins instead of 10-gram mini skeins. I also started with 6 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, like we did before. This time, once the yarn was hot, I decided to go in some striping patterns that were different than what I'd done before. Yes, I put red across everywhere, but then with the other colors, rather than doing some kind of triangle or zigzag, I just went vertically because I knew that the way that these mini skeins are laid in the pan, they're not straight. They are moving sort of sideways with each other. So I thought that by doing these more vertical lines, we could end up with something really cool. I did make sure to keep track of the order, so that way once I flipped the yarn, if I wanted to add more color to the other side, I'd be able to do that in approximately the same order. One thing I always tend to forget myself is how much darker things look while wet. So sometimes we'll be like, oh man, this is so much dye, so much color, but really it's probably going to be more medium toned. But I'm going to now turn off the heat, and I am just really curious and excited to open this up. I'm curious to see how much overlap between colors there might be. And yeah, but I'm going to set this aside. I'm planning to dye this final colorway off camera, but then we will come back and take a look at all of this that we have created. One thing that I'm really excited to do in the conclusion for this video is show sort of each different fade all together as I dyed them. You know, you don't need to dye 30 10-gram mini skeins to get the perfect 100-gram fade, but you could dye them individually if you wanted, and I think that that's a lot of fun. All right, we did use purple pop, but all things considered, this is not a lot of bleeding. I am going to use a little bit of some clear dish soap, which sometimes helps remove color. I'm washing on cool, but then once, you know, I've got the water running clear, and this might take some more washes than some others, I will put the yarn through my spin dryer and hang them up to dry. I am not going to show the washing of every single set of mini skeins in this video. If there's anything notable besides a light amount of bleeding, I will obviously come back and show you guys, but otherwise, let's go and look at all the yarn we created. Ah, we have so many minis. How do I keep them all straight? Well, when they're drying, I have the zip ties around them and I sort of hang them up in an organized way. But then after they're dry and I twist them into, when I twist them up, I secure them with the same reusable nylon zip ties. So that way I can keep each batch together and organized as a set. However, obviously you could mix and match these up. So we could totally dump everything together and create some really fun fade sets that way. But first I want to show you what these look like as we dyed them from the pan. Tonight we have a lot more variability in the minis that we created. Looking at the 4 different sets laid out, you can definitely see the gradients that we created. The very first one we did, which was my original vision for the video, was that layering technique that I love. And it is predominantly red with some yellow undertones and then finally to some more blue undertones at the other side. This would make an amazing cowl, like absolutely stunning, because it is so subtle, but there's no question that we have this fade. The fades for the other ones, especially the 2 at the very end, are more extreme. We start with something that's a lot more orange and yellow and end up with something that's more burgundy and deep, passing through blue and pink notes in between. And this was because I really focused, except for some of the reds that went across, I focused the colors in some vertical sections. And so it really almost could be as though I dyed, you know, some of these in separate pots. But since it's low immersion, you know, these were dyed at the same time next to each other, which I think is pretty cool. When I dyed the first one, I thought, oh, it'd be fun to mix and match with some of the other minis. And absolutely, you could mix and match the first set with the second set, and these would mix together really beautifully for something that is a more obvious kind of fade. I don't think I'm going to mix things up right now, but I think that it's fun to think about which ones you might want to pull together to play around with. I wish that I had laid these out as they came out of the pan so you could sort of see the progression. I drew some triangles of color on top of the yarn, and so while there's yellow in a lot of them, there's definitely some that have a lot more yellow and a lot less blue, and vice versa. But in this set, we have almost all of the colors in every skein while still having very much of a gradient. I think I like the technique that I settled on with the 20-gram mini skeins sort of the best. In these sets, you can really see what looks like 4 distinct colorways. And so it's like you went into a shop and you were pulling out different colors and thinking about how to mix them together. But we dyed it all in one pan, which is just a lot of fun. There are 200 grams here, but I think that you can see that even if you were going to go and pick every other color, you could do a really nice fade with just half of the yarn. Which one of these sets is your favorite? Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to go ahead and give the video a like and make sure you're subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. I am still really in love with the technique that I did in the first one that gave us the most subtle gradient overall. I think that it would have been really fun to really add a lot more red on top of the colors, maybe like I did in the third and fourth ones, to give it sort of that overall redness and let these other colors be more undertones. But it's also fun to create a set that is much more dramatic to share with all of you. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and if you're a fan and love the yarn that I dye, you should go and check out the ChemKnits Creations Etsy store. My shop is filled with over 100 skeins of hand-dyed yarn featured in past and upcoming YouTube videos. And you can even sponsor an episode of Dye Pot Weekly, where you can get a mystery yarn that I dye with you in mind and shout outs in that video. You can find all these details and listings in the Etsy shop. I also want to give a huge thank you to all of you for watching and supporting the content that I create. I truly love what I do, and it's so much fun to do these special weeks. If you want to see what some people are creating with the mini skeins they got from the summer sampler, come and join us in the ChemKnits Lab Facebook group. This is a community for sharing your fiber arts projects, interacting with other yarn dyers, and me. It's a perfect group for ChemKnits fans, and I think that we have a lot of fun over there. So you should go and check it out. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.